Hi guys, I'm Sam and we're Ghana bound. And today we have a very special guest with us at our offices, iHomes Ghana bound. You can find us on the Boundary Road in East Legon. So today we're so lucky I have a very special guest with us. She's been in the legal profession for a number of years and I'd like you to present or introduce yourself for me, please.
Hi, I am Salewa Fritz, a legal consultant with a law practice here in Accra, Ghana, called Integrated Legal Consultants. Our offices are at Airport West, round the corner from Villaggio.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And you guys know we keep preaching the importance of knowing your legal rights and the correct way of buying and purchasing land and homes here in Ghana. It's quite different. There are many different uh, sections and types of land that you can buy. So today we're hoping we can answer some of the questions for you. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, very well, thank you.
Fantastic,
And you?
fantastic. Me, I'm not doing too bad. I'm in Ghana and loving it.
Awesome, awesome.
So, how long have you been in the a legal consultant?
Um, about 5 years. Yeah.
Okay, and is it something that you'd always wanted to do?
Yes, I mean, I always wanted to. I think my first choice. Okay, no, law was my second choice.
Law was your second
Yes,
choice.
my first choice was international relations.
Wow,
Then
serious?
yeah, but I stopped at maths, so I got discouraged at some point. I was like, my maths was terrible. And
Oh,
I said,
right.
okay, yeah, let me go for my second calling.
Oh, I wanted
I
to
went
be a
for law.
pilot, but
Here we are today. Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
so kind of you to come and join us today.
I feel great and
Uh,
honored to be here too.
so, what would be your top tips for somebody coming from the diaspora wanting to buy land in Ghana?
I would say your first point of call should always be seeking legal advice. I know most of the time people shy away from this because, of course, there are fees to be paid and all of that. However, you would rather sacrifice that much to protect your interests than to fall into certain traps and then you lost money and then you still need to seek legal assistance in the long run. So I would say the first point of call would always be seek legal advice and opinion.
Fantastic. And would you say that's the biggest mistake we returnees tend to make?
Yes. Every time people from diaspora run into problems is because the first approach has always been to rely on advice from agents and rely on advice from the sellers' representatives. Yeah.
Okay,
So I mean, please always seek legal advice first.
definitely. And that's come from a legal professional, guys. We keep
Yeah.
stressing that on our channel that you've got to get the legal team in as fast as possible, representing you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, is there any difference to buying a home or to buy land legally here? Is it?
I mean, whether you're buying a house, an
Mhm.
apartment, or you're buying land, I mean, the processes are practically the same. The only variant would be, for instance, if you're buying an apartment, you just need to ensure that certain bills have been catered to. For
Okay.
instance, the former owner has paid service charge up to date, paid utilities up to date
Yeah.
before you acquire, right? It's the same with acquiring land. You need to be
Okay.
sure that the whoever you're acquiring property from has paid ground rents, for instance. If it's government land, they have to pay ground rents to the government,
Okay.
right? If it's family land, some families insist that you pay ground rent. So, I mean, you need to be sure that the former owner, the previous owner, has paid ground rent up to date. Because if you're acquiring properties, you're acquiring it with the buddings and everything that comes along with the properties. So before you take over new ownership of the property, just be sure that you're starting on a clean slate and no buddings. There's no budding that accrues.
I get
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So another thing that we seem to get confused around is that sometimes you can, as you just said, buy land from the government.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a family. Sometimes there's a chief. Sometimes it's a personal sale, like a single person ownership.
Yeah.
Is there anything? Is the purchasing system the same for all these different types? I mean, does everybody in the family need to know if you're buying from a family?
Okay, so if you're buying from a family, you need to ensure that, and this is very critical, you need to be sure that you're buying from or you're dealing with the principal members of the family, right? Which would include the head of the family.
Okay.
So the head of the family cannot on his own decide to dispose of the property. He
Right.
has to do that alongside other principal members of the family. So you need to do your investigations. A lot of there probably needs to be some community engagements for you to ascertain and be sure you're dealing with the right members of the family.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because we do hear stories when cousins come and say, "Oh no, my
it happens all
granddad
the
left
time.
me this
Yeah.
side," and so speaking with the right representative.
Yes, and it's best to get consent in writing from those people, from the signed by the principal members of the family.
Okay.
Yes, for your records, just in case in in likely or unlikely event of a litigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good news because that really gets confusing for those that are not used to that cultural system or
Yeah.
just want to bam put their money down and get
Yes. Yes.
straight into their land ownership. Which brings me on to my next point.
Yeah.
How should the process go, and when do you think money it's appropriate for money to be handed over?
Well, the first step should be due diligence. You need to, and that's why I said from the beginning, engage a lawyer because it's the lawyer that will take you through these processes. You need to do your due diligence. This would include conducting searches at the various regulatory authorities, at the courts, and then the your lawyer would be able to interpret the outcome of these reports for you and let you give you the green light on whether you can go ahead with
Right.
the transaction or whether they're red flags and it is not, you shouldn't go ahead to acquire that property. So responding to the second part of the question, I would like to start with an experience, a recent encounter I had. Somebody reached out to me recently and she needed legal advice or a legal opinion. And in the course of our conversation, I realized that she had parted with some money. Now she had she acquired this property from the family, but she had no documentation. The only thing they had given her was a site plan in her name, of which she did not even have the original copies. She just had pictures of the site plan in her name. I got to know because I said, okay, we need to even conduct a search because she said last time she conducted the search was sometime last year. And so I told her that we needed to conduct a search to be sure that nothing has happened, no new transaction
Right.
has occurred on this property, especially since you have not perfected your interest yet. However, she had parted with some money, and in the course of our conversation, she told me that, oh, she had acquired, she was acquiring 3 plots of land. But when I perused the site plan, I realized that the acreage stated on the site plan was less than 2 plots.
Wow.
And she was shocked when I told her this. And I mean, that is why you should have your own representation because
Right.
obviously she was relying on information from whoever the seller was and his representatives and didn't have her own, for instance, lawyers would probably decide, your own lawyer would decide what would advise you on which surveyor, right, to use because most lawyers work with surveyors. They even have agents they work with,
Yep.
trusted agents and all of that. Yeah. So we have our surveyor, for instance, that's so trusted that we work with. So I mean, who we know would capture the right portion of land, and if the family or whoever you're acquiring from is trying to shortchange you. This surveyor who is now on your side will tell you that, no, when I went on site, they told me it was smaller than the portion you actually mentioned you were acquiring.
Right.
Do you understand? So now she's parted with some money. She has this mindset that she's buying a particular portion of which they're actually selling less to her.
Right.
So she's agitated. She can't wait to come back to Ghana to give them a fight and all of that. But all of this can be avoided, like I said, if you had gone through. Don't be in a hurry. Go
Yeah.
through a process. Seek help. Ask questions. Right. It's great. I like what you guys are doing. It's great that you guys have put this, or you're building a community around around. You have a proper structure.
Right.
I like what you're doing, really. So you're like a one-stop shop for diasporans and people coming into Ghana, and it's like a safe place for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you probably have your resource people who are reliable that you can recommend, which is a good good start. So yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, always seek legal opinion first before parting with any monies.
Oh, that's great. You raised a few points in there that are really key. So oftentimes you're not only getting the legal services, but the team and the relationships that these legal professionals have with very good professional surveyors and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Now, you did mention when you go through the due process or due diligence, should I say, that you do the land search, and there was one line there that you said that you can go to the court and search. Now, that's really important to me because we get so many people that come up and say, oh, I know someone in lands department, let them do the search. But would they be searching for what you're searching in the court? Because they have access to the records, but what are you searching for in the courts?
Okay, so I mean, if you have your contact person in Lands Commission, all they are searching for is what the Lands Commission has on their records, right? They are not going to go outside that, bracket. So usually we advise that we usually now conduct searches at the courts around the area the land is located.
Okay.
Just in case there is any pending litigation on that property, right? Yeah. And so we write to the courts for them to check their records and give us details.
Oh, so there could be something pending that is not landed at the Lands Commission.
So the Lands Commission mostly would deal with information that has been given to them.
Right.
So if, for instance, there's a court judgment and whoever the judgment, in whose favor the judgment has been granted, goes to file that copy at the Lands Commission, then the Lands Commission will have that on their records now.
Right.
Do you understand? But a lot of people don't do that.
I get you.
Yes, so they most likely won't have all of their records might not be so up to date. Awesome.
So there's a step that you may well unknowingly be bypassing, thinking you're doing everything correctly, but there could be information that is in course, in motion, that the Lands Commission wouldn't have. So again, you save some short-term money, but you may well drop yourself into some long-term problems.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so let's really get down to the nitty-gritty here. I've found some land. Yeah. I've come to you.
Okay.
You've done your checks, had a look. There's nothing naughty going on in the courts. And when do I give my money and get the land? I mean, other people are looking at this plot as well. I'm getting agitated that I might lose it. Please, calm my heart.
Okay, so I'm torn between giving you all of the juice. Because, this is legal service that should be paid for. Legal advice that should be paid for. But however, I would say, so if you have it all clear with your due diligence exercise, usually the first point of call, your lawyer would advise that a contract of sale, or what they also call a sales and purchase agreement, be put in place. So your lawyer drafts that document, which is a binding contract between both parties. Now, this contract would detail how the monies would be paid and in what portions it will be paid, like in different tranches or in what installments, this payment to be made, and at what point. For instance, most of the time, the seller may have obligations, right, to fulfill along the way because, okay, to start with, the site plan in your name should be the obligation of the seller to produce.
Okay.
However, a lot of, from experience, we've seen that most sellers, once they're selling, they do not want to incur any expense. Do you understand? So they leave all of that for the buyer to carry, all of that burden for the buyer to carry. So it's subject to agreement, and it's subject to you. If you really want that property, you just would
get it done.
Yeah, you just would need to get it done because the buyer, hands down, will put their foot down that they're not incurring any other expense. So there's a barcoded site plan that needs to be produced in your name. There is, if there's consent, if it's, for instance, if it's government land. Now, you might be buying from an individual. So take, for instance, most of the properties around airports, cantonment area, most of them are government land, right? But now they're owned by entities, companies, or individuals.
Right.
However, the head lessor is still the government. Like the original owner is still the government. Now, you would have to still go back to the government to obtain consent.
Wow.
So that's not for you, the buyer, to do. That's actually for the seller to do. Because the seller is to give notice to the Lands Commission, who's the custodian of government lands, that, oh, I am assigning my interest to this new owner. Please give me consent to assign. You get. So it's like you're asking the government to grant their consent for you to assign your interest in that property to the new owner.
Wow.
Yeah, but like I said, even though this is an expense for the seller, a lot of times, more often than not now, the buyer tends to bear all of this.
Right.
Yeah, but it should be captured properly in that contract of sale, what the process is going to be, how it's going to, at what point each payment is going to be made, who's going to cater to what, and all of that, so that there's no confusion. And then once everything is, all obligations have been fulfilled, then full payment is made. Then you now proceed to draft the deed of assignment or a deed of sublease, which is mostly the case for foreigners coming in, because you get just 50 years.
So we've been in this a while, and there's all sorts of different variations to how a sale can go through. I'm sure you've experienced so many. Oftentimes, you'll get sellers saying, give me something now. Especially I've seen when you're dealing with families, maybe outside, they want something right away. They're not waiting. When is it appropriate to do, and how would you do a deposit? I mean, we don't need the in-depth, but, you know, just an advisory.
I would always say, don't be in a hurry. As the buyer, do not be in a hurry. Do not fall for the pressure.
Right.
A lot of sellers will come to you and say, oh, there are 10,000 people on the queue interested in the same property. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. I mean, there would always be similar properties in the market. Protect your interest first. Be sure that you are secure before you part with any amount. Don't fall for that pressure. And more often than not, a lot of times they tell you so many other people are making inquiries about the same land. You go back there 1 year down the line, and the line is still exactly. It's still So we're familiar with their tactics. I mean, don't just fall for that pressure. I would never advise that you part with monies without a contract of sale that has been signed by both parties. Don't do it.
Would it ever be appropriate for the law firm to hold a deposit and say, look, I'm interested and you're talking all of this, can I give it to my law firm and they will release on successful?
Yes. So, for instance, we do that all the time. We have like a client's account. We hold monies for clients, and then if that's what's going to make the seller feel more secure and safe that, okay, I'm not wasting time waiting for this buyer and all of that. Yes, we do that all of the time. We hold monies on behalf of clients, and then at the appropriate time, we disburse the funds.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when dealing with returnees,
Yeah.
what are the common mistakes that you tend to find that these guys make?
Yeah, a lot of them come into the country, and because they've been introduced to an agent, they rely solely on the advice of the agent.
Right.
And while the agent might have some experience, the agent is not a lawyer and would have some blind spots,
Right.
would not be able to give you a total picture. For instance, even if the agent has his contacts and is able to what they call it, help with the due diligence, the agent is it's very unlikely that the agent will be able to adequately interpret the search report correctly. And then also they tend to rely on representation on the part of the seller, in the sense that they introduce the seller, and the seller says, oh, I have my legal team, I have my surveyor, I have all that you require. And then they place all of their trust in that team.
Right.
One thing you should know is that if a lawyer, for instance, representing the seller is only going to protect the interest of the seller,
Right.
and would not cover loopholes that might affect you in the future and that might
Right.
expose you to certain situations. So it's always in your best interest to get your own legal representation so that you are covered
That
and
makes sense,
protected
right?
adequately. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because why would the seller's team be acting in your favor?
Yeah.
They're there to represent the seller.
Yep.
What documents should buyers be looking out for?
Okay.
And how long realistically does it take, let's say in the case of lands, for that piece of land to completely be yours? Because I know there's a few stages, no?
Okay. First of all, at the initial stages, when the lawyer is trying to help with the due diligence, we mostly would ask if the seller has perfected his interest. That means, have they registered? Do they have a land title certificate in
Title.
their name?
Okay.
Yes. If it is no, what other documentation do they have? Were they issued with an indenture? We want to see some of these documents. Now, with family land, it tends to be different, because in most cases with family land, there's very little or no documentation.
Can you still buy that land?
Yes, you can, because it's something they call first registration, right? Okay. So you can buy land that has never been registered, and you'll be the first person to register. However, you have to be sure that it is free of any form of encumbrance, and
Right.
that you are acquiring from the right representatives of the family. Like I said, in this instance, you need to really do a lot of digging, community engagements. Involve third parties, and be
Right.
sure that you are dealing with the right family, right members of the family.
Right.
Sometimes with family lands, you have even fractions, right? You have different fractions that have broken out. We had an experience where we did a search, and okay, so we're acquiring from a particular family, right? But when we did a search, it was a different family that featured. In fact, two different families featured on the search report.
Wow.
So one featured on the report of one of the departments of the Lands Commission as having judgments many years back, and another featured as having plotted activity, at the survey mapping division. So it was a bit complicated for us. So we had to engage these people. And of course, the family we were actually dealing with initially said, oh, they're all under one umbrella. Do you understand? So we said, okay, if that's the case, then to secure ourselves, we need consent from all of these
Parts of the
parties.
umbrella.
Oh, thank you. So we did that. We got them, the principal members of the family, we got all of them to sign their consents for our records. And then we also got their IDs, just in case.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't look, so far, it doesn't look like there's going to be any problem.
Right.
But we just needed to secure and protect our interests.
So every time you speak, it makes it more clear to me that I need legal team with me to help me make my purchase, you know?
You do.
This is crazy. So by the end of, if I'm owning a property, what document should I have in my hand? I think that's the easiest way of asking the question.
At the end of the registration.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're issued with the land title certificate.
Right.
Well, however, I would like to point out that the registration regions are just Accra and Kumasi. All the other, Greater Accra and then Ashanti region. All the other places have what they call the deeds registry. So you're not issued with a land title certificate. And I'm saying this because I see that a lot of diasporans are buying properties around Aburi and surrounding towns. Yeah. So Aburi, for instance, is in the eastern region.
Right.
So if you're registering, you don't get a land title certificate. Yeah, you just get, once you submit your deed of assignment or deed of sublease, whatever the instrument is that you're registering, you just get it stamped. It goes through the regular processes within the Lands Commission, and then they give you back your documents just with the stamps around.
So there's not a title document.
Yeah, you don't get a land title certificate.
So it'll be on the site plan or something? Is that the certificate? Where would the stamps be?
On the face of the document itself.
Okay.
The deed that you've submitted.
The deed, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's relative to the fact that the Lands Commission would do their own independent assessment. So even though you have quoted $100,000 as the purchase price, if the Lands Commission assesses it at $300,000, you're paying 1% on that 300,000.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I mean.
I hear you. Yeah. So guys, I think it's clear to see that it's not as simple as getting your uncle to talk to his friend in the Lands Commission, putting your money down and walking away with your documents. You really do need to get a legal professional involved in the land or the house acquisition that you want to be making. Do we have any details for you?
Yes, you can reach us, our offices at Airport West, Integrated Legal Consultants on Google Map. It'll bring you right to our office. I can share our contact details.
We'd love to.
Sam, and he can share it with you guys.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you.
Guys, if you have any more questions, please join us in the comment section and we'll be happy to collate all the questions that you have, and maybe we can get you on again.
I'm happy to come.
Fantastic.
I'm happy to come anytime.
And then get your purchase concluded in the safest way possible. So that brings us down to this. If you've liked it, hit that like button. If you think there's something in this interview that your friend needs to hear, share it. And best of all, if you could hit that subscribe button, you won't miss another episode. Thanks again and see you in the next one. Bye.
See ya.